Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And today I'm going to start another mini-series, 3 films that I'm going to call Hollywood Stories. And movies about Hollywood, about the making of pictures in Hollywood, especially from the golden age of Hollywood, are one of my favorite genres. And there's lots to choose from. Hollywood making movies about itself goes back to Joseph von Sternberg's The Last Command in silent film days, and well before that as well. And then recently we had Babylon, which was set in the transition from silent films to talkies that explored the dark underbelly of the glamour of Hollywood. Which in the 1930s was a very significant part of American culture. So I'm going to be talking about a film called The Last Tycoon with Robert De Niro. And all three of the films I'm going to talk about have some sort of literary antecedent or reference. This is Last Tycoon, based on a novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald, who is probably the most famous novelist who came to Hollywood to join the studio system. Great Gatsby, he was written in the 20s. His financial situation was very bad. Hollywood was a very frustrating place for him to work, but it did provide a steady income for a while, but very frustrating for Fitzgerald. And got very few credits in the years that he worked in Hollywood. And this is sort of, The Last Tycoon is sort of based on the life of Irving Thalberg, who was the boy wonder, the head of MGM Studios, and died at a very young age. And after that, I'll be talking about Barton Fink, and this is from 1991. Now, this is not based on a novel. This movie comes from the feverish imagination of the Coen brothers, but it does have references because John Turturro is playing a version of Clifford Odets, who was a Broadway, New York City playwright who comes to Hollywood. Now, he had a lot more success in Hollywood than Fitzgerald or most of the other famous writers who came to Hollywood. But there's also another character in here based on William Faulkner, who eventually wins the Nobel Prize for Literature in the 1950s. He was very much an acclaimed writer, but his books didn't sell, so he needed money. So periodically he would leave Oxford, Mississippi, and go to Hollywood. He worked closely with Howard Hawks on a number of movies. So he's portrayed in Barton Fink as well, or at least a very bizarre version of William Faulkner. But I'm going to start off with the 1975 movie, The Day of the Locust. And this is directed by John Schlesinger, and it is based on a novel by Nathaniel West. I'm showing this cover because I have no idea what they had in mind. On this cover, it also includes Miss Lonely Hearts, which was another highly praised Nathaniel West short novel that was made into a movie as well. The Day of the Locust is an Arrow release, recent Arrow release, and as I'm filming this is, I just checked a little bit ago, and the Barnes & Noble half-price sale on Arrow Video is still in effect. And this is a really nice set with lots of supplements. This is the reverse art film on the disc case. And The Day of the Locust, now Nathaniel West was a screenwriter. He did not have many credits. I think he only had 5 B-movie credits to his resume. And he wrote the novel in 1939, set presumably 1938, and 1940 he tragically died with his wife in an automobile accident. He was only in his mid-30s. The novel didn't sell, but it got tremendous notices. It's often on the 100 best list of American novels. A lot of Hollywood people liked it. They tried to make a movie of it. There were attempts. When I read the novel, I said, no way, how can they possibly make a movie out of this, especially while the production code was in effect? So, because it's a very jaundiced view of the Hollywood dream factory and the sort of the behind the scenes of depiction of the people who come to Hollywood, to Southern California, to make it in the movies. This was the time in the 1930s where there was a huge influx of people into California. Eternal sunshine, great weather. But Nathaniel West didn't quite see it that way. So we have three main characters here, and we have Todd Hackett, played by William Atherton. He is a graduate of the Yale School of Art. He has ambitions to be a serious painter. A talent scout sees some of his work and recruits him for Hollywood. So now he is working at a set as a sort of the bottom rung in the set design team at Paramount. In the book, it's a fictional studio, but this is being made by Paramount, so we see all the interiors of Paramount Studios, and as well as the famous entranceway. So he is playing and then we have Homer Simpson, and Homer Simpson is, and yes, indeed, this is the creator of The Simpsons has said that at least partially that name Homer Simpson was inspired from this character in the Day of the Locust, and that's played by Donald Sutherland. He is an accountant. He's moved to California from the Midwest. He has severe nervous challenges. He's very uptight. He's come to sort of recover. Now in the book, I don't know if the movie mentions it, in the book he's actually got a inheritance from his father that's financing this move to California, where he has the funds to buy a house that's very close to the San Bernardino Arms apartment building, which Todd calls early earthquake in its design. And Todd lives there, and so does our third main character, and this is Faye Greener, played by Karen Black. She is a starlet wannabe. She is trying to make her a go as an extra. She has had one line in a movie. And she is a very volatile character, very erratic behavior, and a very strange character. And she's also a part-time prostitute, and when she needs to pay the bills. There's another character I want to mention. This is Burgess Meredith playing Harry Greener, Faye's father, and they live together at this apartment building. And he's an old vaudevillian, and he too he's searching for just a bit part in a movie, so he in some sort of comic routine. But in the meantime, he's peddling a home-brewed silver polish that he peddles door to door. But when people come to the door, he goes into a vaudeville routine. So we basically think he's really not interested in selling this. He's interested in performing it for an audience of one, some of his old routines. So both of these men are in love with Faye, and they are obsessed with her, to say the least. And it's basically, the movie is basically anecdotal. There's no real plot in the sense, but it is, we get vague feelings that there's some catastrophe to come, a premonition that things are not going to go well for these characters, and there's all kind of things along the way. There's a cockfight, and I didn't go to see this film in 1975. I didn't want to see the cockfight, and also there's an act of violence in this film that I'd heard about, and I didn't want to sit through that as well. But there's other, there's the fake evangelist that pretends to be healing people and is basically collecting money. It's based on Amy Semple McPherson. attempted murder, there's attempted rape. We have a scene in a bordello that the big Hollywood people go with their wives and girlfriends to watch pornographic movies. So we get a sense of unreality. The movies, the whole, the hypocrisy of it, this is the California dream, the American dream that finds the end of the road in California. What's left? If we can't make it here, all we face is the vast Pacific Ocean. So there is, so it's a very downbeat movie. There is no doubt about it. This is a very depressing movie. It's a vision, it's a dark, grotesque vision of Hollywood and the making of films and the underbelly of people with broken dreams. But it is an amazing recreation. I mean, this was $8 million, I think, budget, which was a lot of money in 1975. So huge sets. There is a lot of location photography as well. So we get some views of Los Angeles as recreated. Some are actually still there. And the sets were so spectacular that it drew a lot of visitors to the set. So Mae West came to visit, Gloria Swanson came to visit, a la, Sunset Boulevard. She had to come through the Paramount entranceway. George Cukor was there. They were filming Chinatown at Paramount at the same time. Jack Nicholson and Roman Polanski would come. It was just an amazing set. And part of that was the recreation of Grauman's Chinese theater, and it was I think they said something like 80% of the size of the actual Grauman's Chinese theater. So there's a great supporting cast here. I'll just mention Jackie Earle Haley. I think he was 8 years old at the time. He's dragged around to readings and casting calls dragged by the ear by his mother, and they fight with each other, hit each other. So Jackie Earle Haley, and there are only one or two quick close-ups. So you have to look quick to identify him. He is playing the most obnoxious character you'll ever see in the movies. He is sort of the reverse of the cloying, sentimentality of Shirley Temple. He's just the exact opposite. And we do get there is a filming of we get to see the filming of a spectacular scene at Paramount a movie that Todd is working on, and the director here is William Castle, a horror film director, and he was really good. I mean, he just has a couple scenes as the director here. I would have to say, though, for me, the film's weakness, and I often talk about how casting and many directors say casting is 90% of the success of a film is due to the casting of a film. And I would have to say that I think, although the supporting players are awesome, they're just magnificently cast, the three main leads, I think, are all miscast. William Atherton had panic attacks at the beginning of the shooting. He didn't know how to play the part. He was confident. He was going to do it well enough. Schlesinger was generally very easy on actors. Was very hard on him. He had to leave for a few days to try to get his equilibrium. He was almost fired. I read an interview where he himself thought he was miscast in this part. It was a difficult role. All these characters are really difficult to play. Like I say, how do they make a movie of this? Because these characters are so unusual. There's nothing, there's no sympathy that you're going to have for any of these characters, and that is box office poison when you have no sympathy for characters. And then Donald Sutherland has said that he thought he gave a bad performance, and that his scenes with Karen Black, he said we were on totally different wavelengths. I didn't know where she was at, and that is a problem in the film, is that there's no chemistry in between any of the three actors there, perhaps a little bit between Atherton and Sutherland. And then there is Karen Black as Faye. Now in the novel, Faye is only 17 years old, and Karen Black was in her, I think she was 33 at the time of the filming. And in the book and in the movie, you wonder, why are these two guys so in love? I mean, they're absolutely mesmerized with her, and she is just a total nutcase. But in the novel, we get these little interludes where both Homer and Todd look at her, God, she's so beautiful. She's just so beautiful. Now, I wouldn't say that Karen Black is unattractive, but she doesn't really fit the mold of two men, just dreamy-eyed over her great beauty. And John Schlesinger, and I have a book of interviews with Schlesinger, and when he was talking about The Day of the Locust, he said if he had to do anything over, he would have recast with a younger actress that was more conventionally beautiful, at least in the minds of the audience, so that they would buy this obsession that we have not one but two men have. So the movie is and the movie is it devolves into kind of into the grotesque, to say the least. Now, Todd is at home on his off hours. He still has ambition as a serious painter. He's painting this painting called The Burning, that he calls The Burning of Los Angeles, with all these sort of gargoyle-looking faces, and which leads to our dread of what is to come. And I have to say that what is to come, the apocalypse that is to come, is mighty powerful. It's mighty powerful stuff. Now, the movie was not commercially successful. Did get some good reviews. From my own personal point of view, I thought that, having just read the book a few days before watching the movie, that Schlesinger and Salt were far too literal and faithful to the book. They do add a couple scenes to it, but this is basically, Karen Black is playing the Faye Greener of the novel. I think she tries a little bit too hard. And I think that Salt and Schlesinger could have taken some liberties with this novel. We get some, and it would have been more palatable to audiences. And we get some cinematography by Conrad Hall. It's very experimental. He put gauzes and nets, and we get a very over the camera lens, and we get very dreamy, creamy, pastel shaded, very soft cinematography. I didn't much like it when I watched it the first time, but when I listened to the commentary, it's a commentary that is a conglomeration of interviews with some of the technical crew and the costume designer. Costumes are fantastic. It also received a nomination for an Academy Award. So the reception of the film was not good. Now, Robert Evans was the head of Paramount at the time. He didn't want to make this movie, and somehow there was an executive at Paramount that loved the novel. He overruled Robert Evans, so the film was made, and when they were completed, they showed the film. Schlesinger and Jerome Hellman, the producer, showed the film to Evans, and he said, man, I really admire what you guys did here. I mean, you really gave it a great shot. But there's no commercial viability here at all, which he was right. And I pretty much agree with Evans in that I have more or less admiration for the attempt, even if I think it in some parts was not successful in their interpreting of the novel. So the film opened in New York City at a sort of art film theater, and did great business for 2 weeks, but in the rest of the country it did nothing. It was a huge flop. Now, it did also get some really good reviews. Roger Ebert gave it 3 stars, and that you can access on the IMDb page for Day of the Locust. But there's 2 other contemporaneous reviews, one by Pauline Kael in the New Yorker. It's just a brilliant, one of her great. She was in her prime in the 1970s. She was in tune with with the times, for sure. And then there's one that Jana Maslin wrote for the Boston Globe. Even though I don't agree with everything that both of those critics say, their level, their level of perception and the way they articulate their views is so satisfying to engage with. So the movie, I think this is a really great release from Arrow. Uh, there's a wide variance of opinion of what I call the miscasting. There's some people who think Sutherland is great. Pauline Kael thought he was awful. But it's definitely a movie worth seeing. In 1975, this was the end, and this is one of the really last films of the big studio spending a lot of money on projects that are downbeat and you would not ordinarily see until after the production code, and really did reflect the times in the U.S. as far as the 60s, social turmoil of the 60s, the Vietnam War, the assassinations, Watergate. But by 1970, and so downbeat movies were being made because people were feeling downbeat. They saw truth in this downbeat vision of America. But by 1975 and the last part of the decade, audiences now wanted to feel good about their country, and they wanted a more traditional heroic story. So, Rocky and Star Wars and Jaws and, the big blockbuster that really satisfied the audience's need for entertainment and more upbeat endings. So thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.